I hope you found learning of the Brotherhood of Steel's entire history somewhat entertaining. I left a few bits out, as you can only fit so much onto a blank holotape as you can probably imagine. Today, I'm going to cover some of that missing information for you, as we discuss some of the more well-known conflicts and wars that the Brotherhood of Steel has been involved in. My name is The Wanderer, and this is War of the Brotherhood of Steel. Without further delay, I highlighted many of the major conflicts in Brotherhood of Steel history in my last holotape, so I think it's best we start from the very first documented conflict I'm in possession of. The first documented war I have of the Brotherhood of Steel is with that of the Vipers. The Vipers were religious, zealous raiders and fiends who originated from Vault 15 alongside the future New California Republic, Jackals, and Great Khans. The Vipers in particular believed in a snake god, after their leader in 2097 had a religious epiphany after falling into a pit of mutated vipers. Their venom had mutated, and instead of killing those inflicted by it, enlightened them to a higher being, according to these raiders. They then swore to sacrifice any and all wastelanders who wandered too close to their pit, in return for wealth, glory, and purpose. As the Brotherhood of Steel had just finished up establishing themselves as one of the major powers in California in the 2150s, with Lost Hills and the surrounding areas claimed as Brotherhood territory, the Vipers had a little base of their own, a little bit too close to Brotherhood soil. This Viper base was located in the Badlands to the south of Lost Hills, and the Vipers presumably used this base to spread their influence and their ability to prey on unsuspecting victims. Whether the Brotherhood of Steel saw this as a threat to them or the wasteland at large is up for debate. No matter their intentions with engaging with the Vipers, their goal was all the same: to push back and at most eradicate the Vipers and get them off Brotherhood turf. When the time came for action, High Elder Maxon took only a few squads of scouts with him to hunt down these Viper troublemakers. This was due to Maxon seeing them as nothing more but a group of crazed tribals, that with the mighty and powerful weapons and soldiers at the Brotherhood of Steel's disposal, they could make short work of. Maxon and his squad then located the Vipers finally, and expected them to turn and run at the sight of the T-51B power armor that the soldiers were wearing, and the heavy weaponry that they wielded. However, the Vipers' sheer zealous nature prevented them from doing so, and they began to engage with the Brotherhood troops. Maxon was killed in this battle when his helmet was off by a poisoned arrow shot from the bow of one of the Vipers, killing him in just a few short hours and leaving the Brotherhood of Steel without a leader, that being until John Maxon took the role of High Elder. Paladin Rhombus was promoted to Head Paladin and was heavily involved in the campaign that was planned to avenge their previous Elder. This new campaign, formulated by the Paladins of the Brotherhood of Steel, with Paladin Rhombus at the head of this operation, saw a month-long extermination of the Viper forces. The Brotherhood more than likely made short work of this base to the south of Lost Hills, decimated their origin point at the Snake Pit out in the desert, and left the Zealots scattered. During this campaign, a group of Paladins was sent to the Hub, a nearby settlement, to track down any survivors, which saw the traders and caravans of the Hub become acquainted with the Brotherhood of Steel for the first time, and opening trade relations and trade routes to Lost Hills. Meanwhile, the Vipers, as seen in my own experience, live on in pockets across the desert, near extinct. This Brotherhood victory ensured that not just the Vipers knew, but everyone knew that the Brotherhood of Steel was a force not to be fucked with. Around half a decade or so on from the Viper extermination campaign led by Head Paladin Rhombus, a new threat was slowly beginning to arise. This threat was first discovered by a Brotherhood patrol in the Badlands that stumbled across a big, green creature, humanoid in appearance, dead on the sandy grounds. This puzzled the troops, and so they took it back to the scribes at Lost Hills for dissection and study. Head Scribe Vree led this curious observation of the being they had discovered in the Badlands, and her studies would continue for quite some time. A year or so later, a traveller from Vault 13 was welcomed into Lost Hills, and was searching and sharing information about these strange creatures. The Vault Dweller shared that this being they had discovered 1 year ago was named a super mutant, the result of the forced evolutionary virus which was being utilized to create an army of super mutants, those of which who were subjected to this presumably did not volunteer. Head Scribe Vree, with the help of the Vault Dweller, would conclude her study of the corpse she had found, discovering that these creatures had a flaw in their design. The super mutants were unable to reproduce, which meant they had been created by unnatural means. Someone, or something, was creating these abominations and dooming them by not doing the proper research on how they may sustain the bloodline of these creatures. And that person, or that thing, was the Master. High Elder Maxim was convinced by the Vault Dweller's explanation to he and his troops of the super mutants, in which he sent a force to the Mariposa military base where both the Brotherhood of Steel and the super mutants had originated to locate and terminate the FEV vats which presumably were creating these monstrosities. With the assistance of Maxim's Brotherhood, the cathedral in which the Master hid below was destroyed, and the mutant threat was severed. And with this, the Vault Dweller, like I said in the last holotape, completely disappeared, nowhere to be seen. After spending some years mopping up any and all leftover super mutants from the Unity, as well as falling into a stagnant state, the Brotherhood of Steel were finally faced with another foe, one that would take a different approach to possibly defeat. During the time leading up to and around 2240, the Brotherhood detected frequencies off the mainland, as well as reports of people in unusual power armor and invertebrates. Even if these people were a threat to the Wasteland or the Brotherhood of Steel, the Brotherhood could not deal with them correctly due to their stagnant period, which led to only one other option of handling this new threat: covert operations. The Brotherhood then started spending a lot of their time monitoring this faction's movements, though they were unable to do anything directly themselves. The Brotherhood did this by recovering various relay stations and things of the sort to further boost their ability of spying on this new foe. This faction they were monitoring was the reorganized remnants of the United States government, now going by the alias Enclave. The Brotherhood monitored the Enclave right up to their defeat at the hands of the Chosen One, a relative of the Vault Dweller, leaving them without an enemy once again, and buying them some breathing room to get out of their stagnant period without having to worry about the Enclave being a possible threat to them or the Wasteland. Unknown to the Brotherhood of Steel, however, this was not the end of the Enclave, nor would it be the last time they would encounter each other. Elder Lyons, in a chapter later becoming the Capital Wasteland Brotherhood of Steel, was sent east with quite the list of goals which I covered in my last episode, which as they travelled further east got smaller and smaller. One of their primary objectives was to find the rumoured second super mutant wave, a second generation originating someplace in the east, also giving the Brotherhood of Steel the opportunity to branch out to areas of interest such as Washington DC. It took little to no effort for Elder Lyon's men to locate the mutants in the capital, as they infested the ruins of downtown, as well as having small camps and pockets dotted across the wastes, terrorizing local settlements such as Big Town. The Brotherhood of Steel were able to assist the settlers of the capital wasteland by pushing this large force of super mutants back to only the city ruins, meaning that while the city ruins and especially downtown were uninhabitable, the rest of the wasteland had a fighting chance against the mutants. Too many questions arose from this second wave of super mutants, such as their creation, their origin, and their motive. This would become somewhat of an obsession to Elder Lyons, and so he set a new objective for his Brotherhood of Steel: to locate the origin point of the super mutants, and just like Mariposa before it, terminate the facility. Despite Lyons' worry about the super mutants, it remained a secondary objective to the Brotherhood, with the recovery of advanced technology still being the focal point of Lyons' presence in the capital wasteland. Liberty Prime, a large, disassembled, malfunctioning war machine that was left to rust in the bowels of the Pentagon, was one of these technologies that the Brotherhood recovered. However, Liberty Prime and the robot's history even before the Brotherhood's acquisition will be covered in a future episode in this series. The fight against the super mutants would be long and arduous, and the Brotherhood of Steel's extermination efforts would be put to a halt with the arrival of an old enemy. With Dr. Lee, the Lone Wanderer, and any and all companions that tagged along with them arriving at the Citadel, revealed the return of an enemy that the Brotherhood of Steel had been monitoring decades ago, but did not have the strength to deal with at the time. The Enclave had returned. A force that had escaped from the Poseidon oil rig explosion had fled to the capital to rebuild, and hid right under the Brotherhood's noses for over 20 years. While their efforts were focused on the super mutants, the Enclave were given time to grow stronger. The Enclave had seized the Jefferson Memorial not too far from the Citadel, and posed a threat to the Wasteland and her people once again. It was with this that the Brotherhood made plans and preparations for an assault on the Purifier, which with the help of their big robot Liberty Prime, who although was not field tested just yet, was ready for action nonetheless. Once the assault begins, the Enclave stand no chance with Liberty Prime at the helm, leaving the Enclave defeated but not entirely lost. A few weeks later, after the water purifier was fully recovered and operational, the Brotherhood's objectives shuffled slightly, with the distribution of clean water to the Wastelanders taking the #1 priority spot, and fending off surviving Enclave soldiers was secondary, with all previous missions regarding the mutants and the tech cast aside momentarily. The war with the Enclave was far from over, as the Enclave, despite not having a president or governing body after Raven Rock was destroyed, were using Adams Air Force Base as their last effort in the DC area. The first phase of the Brotherhood's plan was to attack and destroy an Enclave relay station, which while successful, dealt a heavy blow to the Brotherhood of Steel. This relay station was used by Enclave personnel to communicate with other Enclave forces, as well as a powerful orbital strike. The Brotherhood of Steel lost many troopers on their siege on the relay station, and also lost one of their most valuable assets. Liberty Prime was struck down by an orbital strike from the Enclave. This left the Brotherhood troops without a counter to the Enclave's vertibirds. After this, research began on Tesla technology for the Brotherhood, which would act as a better counter towards the vertibirds than even Liberty Prime in some cases. Once a prototype Tesla cannon was developed, the Brotherhood began their assault on Adams Air Force Base. Deep within the Enclave's last bastion, there was a mobile base crawler which had another orbital strike terminal on board, and had the coordinates selected and targeted for various bases and settlements in DC, including the likes of Megaton and Rivet City, but was activated to target the mobile base crawler and the surrounding Air Force Base instead. Yet another victory against the Enclave in the capital Wasteland was secured under the Brotherhood's belt, and in the decade or so that followed, the Brotherhood of Steel would occupy the Air Force Base and utilize its many capabilities to build the Pridwin, an airship which would become just as valuable of an asset to the Brotherhood than possibly even Liberty Prime, but that is up for debate. Not much is known about what caused the conflict between the New California Republic and the Brotherhood of Steel, only wasteland rumors. Some point to Jeremy Maxson, but there's little to no proof of that happening. What we do know is that sometime before 2274, 3 years after I managed to wipe the Steelheads out, or so I thought, something happened between the Brotherhood of Steel and the NCR that shook up their relations and made their troopers hostile towards each other. This conflict was seen throughout the Mojave and presumably parts of California, which was not assisted by the brutal and insane leadership of Elder Elijah. One of the main conflicts many Wastelanders know about is the Battle of HELIOS One. When Elijah and his troops arrived in the Mojave, only to discover that the NCR had taken Hoover Dam, Elijah became fixated on HELIOS One. The Brotherhood of Steel wasted no time in setting up camp there, as well as catching the attention of the NCR. The New California Republic sought control of HELIOS One to further establish their presence in the wasteland, as well as a handful of other reasons. Despite this desire, Elijah and his Brotherhood refused, and spent around 2 years fighting off NCR attempts to gain access to the plant. After 2 whole years of warfare, the New California Republic executed Operation Sunburst, which was the strategic strike on HELIOS One to finally win it from the Brotherhood of Steel's heavy defense. Where the Brotherhood had the technology, the NCR had numbers, which whittled down the Brotherhood's defenses slowly before forcing them into a full retreat, resulting in Elijah completely disappearing. By 2281, the HELIOS One facility is under tight control of the NCR, and with the Brotherhood of Steel cowering away in the Hidden Valley bunkers, wasting away after their soul-crushing defeat. Jumping back east, and an entire decade after the Enclave's capital wasteland sector were wiped off the map, the Brotherhood of Steel on the east coast were at their strongest once again. Under the command of headstrong Arthur Maxson, who reunited the disgruntled outcasts and Lions Brotherhood of Steel to create an army true to both causes, a portion of this chapter headed to the Commonwealth in their airship constructed at Adams Air Force Base. This was after Paladin Dance of Recon Squad Gladius detected advanced signals and frequencies coming from the mysterious and unreachable faction naming themselves the Institute. The Institute had made themselves known to the capital wasteland as a very poorly kept secret, with a doctor who was looking for a rogue android. The Brotherhood of Steel most likely recognized the name, and knew of their android creations and capabilities. That is dangerous technology the Brotherhood must want, and so the crew of the Pridwin wasted no time in setting course for Boston Airport. According to some people I met a while back, this group of Brotherhood soldiers managed to rebuild Liberty Prime and get some ways of locating the Institute via their own synths and a lot of chasing cold trails. Liberty Prime allegedly blew a massive crater into the Institute, allowing the Brotherhood to access the Forbidden Faction's lair. It's unknown to me if this is true or not, or whether they were victorious. Well, I believe that's all we know so far of the Brotherhood's various conflicts and wars. I hope you found this information useful, and if you don't want to miss out on any future episodes of this series or any future series I do on this channel, consider liking, subscribing, and turning notification bells on to get notified of when I upload. If you'd like exclusive live streams of editing videos like the one you're watching right now, as well as early access to viewing said videos with some dope custom badges and emojis, be sure to become a Wanderer supporter today by clicking the join button for only £1 a month. Speaking of which, I'd like to thank the current Wanderer supporters for their appreciated support. Cypriot Fox, CKS Mantis, Bonk, Lovable Douchebag, Splicer87, and finally, The Useless Show. You're all brilliant and generous people for supporting me the way you do, and I thank you so much. If you'd also like your name at the end of each video, consider becoming a member as I mentioned beforehand. This has been The Wanderer, and be sure to tune in to my next Fallout lore episode where we will be discussing the Brotherhood of Steel outcasts of the Capital Wasteland. I hope to see you around.
You